Welcome to the DooDoo Diva Smells Like Money podcast. I'm your host, Suzan Chin-Taylor, CEO and founder of Creative Raven, the firm that helps wastewater industry contractors and manufacturers unlock the power of digital marketing, AI, and PR to boost sales and opportunities. Whether it's through our online marketing and lead generation programs or providing a fully outsourced marketing department, we are passionate about helping businesses in the wastewater and civil infrastructure sectors not just survive, but thrive in today's digital world. Each episode, I'll be bringing you expert tips and strategies to help you grow and succeed. Let's dive in. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the DooDoo Diva Smells Like Money podcast. Today, we are continuing our visit with Scott Tackett of Violand, and he is a senior advisor, and I know this is a mouthful, and director of, say that again, Scott?
Organizational
development. Right. Yes. I know it is a mouthful. And yes, today we're going to be talking about change and culture, workplace culture, which is great, right on the heels of our last episode where we dealt with managing for accountability. And today, we're all faced with labor shortages, finding good people. And we talked about how do you become an attractive employer that everybody wants to come work for? And then how do you keep those good employees? And part of that, that I've done quite a few episodes on retention from different aspects, but I really wanted the folks from Violand to come on and talk about this topic because they specialize in consulting for the skilled trades for our industry. And so they have a very unique perspective on creating that workplace culture. And it does involve change. And I'm no spoiler alert, and I'll let Scott get into this, because a lot of us, when we hear the word change, organizational change, every hair on the back of your neck starts to, stand on it, and we think, okay, now what's going to happen? We're all waiting for the other shoe to drop. But in this instance, nothing could be further from the truth. It is all about change to create more dynamic, positive workplace culture and actually inviting change for the benefit of an organization. So I hope I've got your interest piqued. And so with that, share with us Violand's philosophy on the culture of change.
Yes, well, thank you, Susan. It's great to be with you again. I appreciate the opportunity. And you're right. When I talk with clients and potential clients, when we talk about the need for change, everyone's eyebrows and eyes go up. And what does that mean? And I think there's no one in business that would disagree with me or us, you and I, that the biggest inhibitor for change is fear.
Absolutely.
And how am I going to be impacted? What's going to be the results? Why do we have to change? We've done it this long. We've it's always worked. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So
right.
Type of mentality. I look at it from a perspective of an opportunity for continuous improvement. And if we as individual companies are not looking at embracing the idea of continuous improvement, our competition is every single day, they're trying to figure out how they can do a better job than us, whatever our specialty is, whatever our services is. Because ultimately, and particularly if you're a very, very successful organization, they're coming after you. They're coming after you. And so if we do not continue the momentum, and John Maxwell calls it the law of Mo, if you don't continue the momentum and we get complacent in our organization, that's when we're going to be overtaken. That's when the competition is going to provide a higher level of service to our clients, which is then in turn going to damage us both from a perspective of financial performance, reputation, and success. Now, having said all of that, I always look at this change that needs to take place should be constant, not from the perspective of change for the sake of change, but we should have a plan. We believe at Violand very, very strongly that every organization that we work with must have a strategic plan, a business plan. And this is a plan that is really formulated so that as we come into the new year, and let's say 2025, in November of 2024, October and November of 2024, we were already talking about strategic plan for our clients for 2025. And as a client, you have to put together a strategic plan. Now we provide that, we facilitate that, and we have several different components for that strategic planning process. But they spend basically with us 3 days off-site at a location, away from the business. Let's put together your plan. And so what we work on is really 4 aspects of a plan. Number one is certainly your mission, your vision, and your core values. Okay, and what is that vision? Where do you want to go 5, 7, 10 years from now? What's your mission? What gets you out of bed? What are our core values? What do we need to exhibit in order to be successful? Then we put together what we call major business objectives, and we're looking at 2 or 3 major business objectives. And in this process, we're doing a SWOT analysis, we're doing an internal and external review, and then we do a budgetary process. So part of the plan is the budgets process, and then the 4th component is what is the significant issues that we need to be addressing from a cultural perspective. And I like this to be not a hit and miss. We like it to be a team effort that said, okay, where do we need to go to build this idea of continuous improvement? And that means change. And it's not unrealistic to look at and say, okay, we had a very, very good 2024, but how do we make a better 2025? And so what we're looking at here is a process. And as we talked in the earlier session about the idea that managing for accountability has got to be a structured plan, change does as well. And one of the things that I see from a philosophical perspective is that we've got to look at this as a process. So where do we start? Good data, good information. All right. Why do we want this change to happen? What's that data? Then we provide our clients with feedback, talking to people, doing engagement surveys, measuring ourselves, KPIs. What are key performance indicators that will indicate how we're doing? Not some, well, I think we need to do better, or I think we're doing great, or I think we're doing, but what do the numbers tell us? Then we create an action plan around that. Then we work towards the implementation of that. Then we implement that change, and we look at to sustain that change, whatever that change may be, big or small, it doesn't matter. And then evaluate it. And then you know what? We start over again, Susan. We start all over. So I use the action research model as my guideline, working with clients for change. And I use that model, and it's in figure 8, infinite. It's constant. It's constant. The only thing that we know in business today for sure is that change has to be implemented. So one of the things that I do, if we all agree that fear is the biggest factor in that, we have to play offense with our employees. What I mean by playing offense is I like to use the term of force field analysis, and I don't want this to sound academic, but the force field analysis says to me, as the coach and facilitator, what are the drivers behind this change? What are the top 5, 6, 7 drivers behind the change that we want to implement? The other side of that is, what are the inhibitors? What are my employees going to feel like? And I'll give you an example. If we're implementing maybe a software change, something related to computers and internet and the technology that we're faced with, because technology is changing every day.
Right.
Well, if I have an older employee, they're automatically going to be concerned about, because they didn't grow up in the world of technology. So they're fearful. Okay, we're going to put in a new software job management system, or we're going to I have to take this tool and use it now in the field. How am I going to do that? We've got to explain to them. We're going to train you. We're going to give you the tools and resources you need, and you remove those fears. You also play offense by explaining to everyone inside the organization why we are instituting this change. What effect is it going to have on us? And it goes back to our previous session in talking about managing for accountability. One of the key components that we have as leaders and managers and supervisors is financial performance and ease of customer satisfaction and making it better on our customers, making a better customer experience, systems, processes, and procedures. So it's really all interrelated, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's true, that you are going to have people that are going to be very fearful. And I think when you're having to make a change, is getting out in front of the fear and
Yes.
helping them to understand, we understand this may make you feel uncomfortable.
Right.
And we're going to help you ease your way through that.
Right. Right. And I
And
think
why? And I think it also
right.
comes down to people understanding that you're not just doing this on a whim. And like you said earlier, making a change for the sake of change because it's the latest and greatest thing, or that's the thing that's trending on the internet now that you think
right.
you should have in your business because the guy down the street is using it. No,
Right.
but you're doing it for a very specific reason. And I think that when people are kept in the dark,
right.
that we're going to do this, we're going to help you with it, but they don't understand why management has decided this would be a good thing,
right.
to be part of it. And I also hear from some organizations that I work with, with their marketing teams, is we're going to start doing this. Well, why? Okay, well, why not? And I think it's important also that when change is going to be brought to the forefront, it's going to affect everybody. Giving your team a weigh in, like we're thinking, like the decision hasn't been made, right. We're thinking about this. What are your thoughts? And if we were to do XYZ and you had a wish list of what you would like XYZ to do for you, what would it be? And that's not to say that everybody's wish list is going to get fulfilled. But when people are given that chance to weigh in and be part of that decision-making process, they feel validated, as you know, they feel valued. And I find, especially with new tech, if they've had a say in the decision, you will get a much higher degree of buy-in and use of a tool. Than if you just ram it down someone's throat and says, I'm going to train you and you are going to use this. It's like, okay.
Right. Well, the key that you just made several great points. One of the points is that we want the buy-in, which creates ownership. Once they have ownership, now it's not just something that Scott Tackett is telling me I have to do, or Suzan's telling me I have to do, or the owner's telling me now. And people, one of the areas that we make our biggest mistakes is not spending the time to explain the whys, because they're not challenging us, but we all want to know the why. Once we know the why, then we can assist them in getting comfortable in how that is going to impact them. It goes back to a style of leadership referred to as transformational leadership. And you all know that there's very, very many, many styles of leadership, servant leadership, and all this. I love transformational leaders because transformational leaders realize that their ability to influence people, to explain to them how they will benefit from this,
Right.
whatever that process is, now they're going to buy into it because it falls into, I believe this wholeheartedly, that there is an acronym that I use in almost every one of my training programs. Our employees come into work every day with the idea of WIIFM.
Oh, what's in it for me? It's the
What's in it
marketing
for
rule.
me?
It's just like
Yeah.
when I write marketing messaging for companies
Yeah.
or even, content, whatever you're putting out there in your content, remember to sit in the shoes of the person reading that. And the only thing that they're thinking about is what's in it for me. I mean, even
Yeah.
think about your own human nature. No matter whether you're being sold a car, a box of bananas, or a house, whatever it is, when you're
Doesn't
sitting
matter.
across the seat from that salesperson, the only thing that is going through your mind is,
Right.
okay, so what's in it for me? Like, why should I do this? How am I going to? They don't care about anything else. It's just, this is not bad. It's just human nature.
No, it is human nature. I hope that every one of your individuals that are listening in today or seeing in today are coming up with, well, why am I listening to this podcast? I could be doing something else. What am I going to get out of it? I love that. I want that. Now, from an organizational perspective, from a management perspective, there's another acronym that I use, WIIFO. And WIIFO is what's in it for the organization. So we have to tie both of those in. So when I'm communicating, when I'm communicating a change to the employee, I'm telling them the why, how this is going to affect you and why, how is this going to affect the organization? And I'm not going to hide anything. I'm not going to make it better than what it is. I'm not going to guarantee them that this is going to solve all of our problems or all of our issues, but this is why we're doing it. And I think in those discussions, the single most important point for managers and supervisors to realize is that during these discussions, never minimize a person's feelings. So the worst thing that I can say, oh, Suzan, don't worry about that. You shouldn't worry about this change. It'll be fine. Now I've just minimized their concerns. What's in it for me? And I've lost them. I can be patient. I can listen to what they have to say, and then I can address those issues. And that's in my model that I use when we create the action plan. It is get the ownership of the people. There's a great book that I use a lot when I love what you said a minute ago. I'm not a plan of the day, program of the month guy. We go to an association meeting and we hear that Jerry and Sally are doing this, and oh, it's wonderful. So I'm going to run back. Businesses are unique. Culture is unique. Don't fall victim to that. But I like to use books as a go-between. And there's a book called Extreme Ownership, How the U.S. Navy SEALs Win and Lead. And it's not a book about war. It's a book about 12 lessons that these two SEAL team members learned, and now they apply it to business. And one of the things that they talk about is the importance of communicating with your employees about the whys and the what fors, accepting responsibility, but making sure that they have the buy-in. And I feel like, and this is an ongoing discussion or maybe a disagreement that people will have, but I'm prepared to discuss this. I believe that money does not motivate people. I believe it maintains, it motivates. I think they're looking for three things in the workplace, and particularly during times of cultural change and building that culture. One, they want to feel in on things. They want to be part of it, but you got to explain to them what their part is. Number two, appreciation. They want to be appreciated for what they do. And number three, the feeling in on things, appreciation, and an understanding attitude. So the patience comes when during change initiatives and building the culture is to listen to what they have to say. You don't have to agree with it, but just listen to what they have to say. Many times they just want to vent. They just want to share that, hey, I'm worried about this. Am I going to lose money? Am I going to have to work harder? Am I going to work more hours? And are we going to eliminate people? And now with the world of artificial intelligence, that's going on, people are really worried about positions and jobs. So
They are.
we have to have uh, more resolve to understand what they're looking for and help them through these processes.
Yeah, and it's that listening, just as you made that point, is that sometimes it just comes down to they're not expecting you to solve their problems or make all their wishes come true. They just simply want to be heard and to voice their concerns, because there may not be anything that you can do about it.
That's right.
But at least they feel like they were worried.
That's right. I'm pointing to show you in a minute. I use this to convince managers and supervisors on, you've got two ears, you've got two eyes, and you got one mouth. Use these and these as much as you can, and this sparingly. And the adage is that basically our brain, and you probably are aware of this already, our brain goes 5 times faster than a normal person speaks. So if we're not slowing ourselves down and using these to listen and to see what's going on, we're losing that opportunity to connect. When we lose that opportunity to connect, we don't get the ownership that we need from our people.
Well, I just want to throw this out there, because something that I've recognized as, in working, with marketing messaging, is that people are under the impression that their customer buys based on logic, and nothing could be further from the truth. People buy on how they feel. They buy purely on emotion. And so I'm just curious, as you've been doing this on the human development side or business, workforce development side, is that, have you seen that holds true when there's going to be a change in an organization, that the way that people buy into it, or the people that they come on board or accept it, that it is more emotionally driven or logically driven, or it's a little, obviously, because fear is driving it. But if you address that fear, does that emotional thing really be that driving force that's going to make it a success when you're trying to implement change or not? My gut is saying yes, but I just wanted your weigh in on that.
Yeah. My experience is entirely in agreement with what you feel. If I can reduce that fear as quickly as possible, I remove that emotion. I remove that trigger point that says, "Oh, this is going to be bad. This is going to be terrible. This isn't going to work. That isn't going to work. What's in it for me?" And if I remove that or minimize that, we may never take it away completely, but then the logical side of them kicks in, because we share the data and the information, and we put them at a comfort level that, trust me here, we are going to do this appropriately. We're going to make sure that you are trained, you are competent, and psychologically, people will hold on until they feel a sense of, okay, this is not as bad as I thought. And so the emotion comes out. When I work with managers and leadership, I always tell them that one of the best bits of advice that I can give you when you're dealing with a difficult employee, don't make it personal. Go after the behavior, not the person. And when I look at change and building your culture, you heard me talk a minute ago about mission, vision, and core values, and
Right.
I know that our clients, they come back and they're all excited, after doing this, and they get a nice frame and they put all these pictures up and all this cool stuff, and I love that. I love that cool stuff. But I always say to folks, you put up that we're going to overcome mountains on the wings of doves, and all this.
Yeah.
But I love it, but no, they're going to follow you. They're going to follow you, and every manager, every leader, every supervisor is in a fishbowl, and they know when you come in, they know what you do during the day, and they know when you go home. And so it's not what you say, it's how you behave. You can say all the good things in the world, but it's how you behave, how you manage. And I learned a long time ago early in my career, one of my mentors told me, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, they'll never forget how you made them feel. And so,
yeah, and I remember that was something that I think it's attributed to Maya Angelou, who who actually said that, but they'll never forget the way you made them feel.
Exactly.
And so I'd like to close on that note, in that I think that's probably the most important takeaway of, this particular episode, is that if change is required, when change is required, to not lose sight of the emotional impact and the fear factor that's going to accompany it before you actually enact it. And so to do it, like you said, not for just the sake of it, but to take it very methodically, very carefully. And what I'm hearing in this is to take it, I don't know, with a sense of empathy and compassion.
Right.
In that not everybody is going to feel the same about a change. Whereas some people may be very excited and be like, oh, well, gosh, it's about darn time, whereas others was like, well, wait a minute, we're just fine the way we are. This is the way it's always been done. Why can't we continue? And then there are others that, especially that person that's got that struggles to deal with their email on their phone.
Right.
You've got it all across the gamut. And just being prepared that everybody's going to look at it differently, and to not, like you were saying, not to pigeonhole everybody into that same emotional response, and how to address that in the best way possible for the best outcome for everybody. I love that WWIFM, but also the WWIIFO.
Right.
Is that you're doing it for a reason for your organization. And I just, you have to dovetail those two together. It's just, that's fantastic.
Because one of those alone will not make it successful. If I'm only thinking about the organizational needs, it's doomed. If I only think about the employee needs and what the organization needs, it's doomed. We'll bring those two together and we'll be successful.
That is fantastic. So for those of you who have been listening, if you are interested in learning more about what Violand and Scott and other members of his team do, you can look them up online at violand.com. It's VIOLAND. You can also connect with Scott on LinkedIn. And I hope you've enjoyed this episode. And stay tuned, because we're going to have another member of the Violand team come to do another series of episodes with us for the skilled trade business in our industry on some other highly interesting topics, very different from this. And so I want to thank you for spending your time with us today, Scott, and you listeners for tuning in. And until next time, keep it flowing. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. If you're ready to take your marketing to the next level and start increasing sales and opportunities for your business, reach out to us at Creative Raven. We're here to help you thrive in the digital landscape. Visit creativeraven.com or click the link in the show notes below to schedule a call and learn how we can support your growth. If you enjoyed the insights on today's episode, be sure to hit subscribe so you'll never miss an update. Until next time, keep growing and keep it flowing.